What's up, guys? So recently I've been going through this book that I found on my shelf from a long time ago. It's called Mitrofanov's Deflection. It's this amazing tactic where you give away a piece for free to block a check, and it can even be captured, putting you in check again. But because you deflected the piece from the original square, it's actually one of the best moves, or the best move in the position. So we're going to see 8 different examples that came from actual games. And these all feature bishop deflection. So what that means is you're blocking the check with a bishop. And like I said, giving it away for free. These are pretty mind-boggling. I saved the best one for last, so make sure you stick around for that. And by the way, my kids are in the other room mostly screaming, so if you happen to hear some of that throughout this video, I apologize. But having said that, let's jump right in and see what this bishop deflection tactic is all about. Okay, so here's the first position. White has just played d6 check. It's a discovered check because the queen is sitting back there, and after you move the pawn, now black is in check, and at the same time has the problem that their queen is under attack. And by the way, if you're wondering how we got into this position, white actually just played knight to d4. Black captured, and white decided to sacrifice the knight by playing queen to b3 to line up the discovered check. Black took the knight, probably because they had this idea in the back of their mind, and allowed white to go with d6 discovered check. So, question for you, what do you think black played in this position? It's probably not that hard to figure out based on the title of the video and the introduction that I gave, but what did they play? And a better question would be, why did they play it? All right, so if you've had a chance to analyze that real quick before I tell you the answer, first of all, if black just decides to move the king to get out of check, like king h8 or king h7, well, then they just lose their queen, right? So that's kind of the major threat, and that's why you can't simply slide your king to the side like you normally would be able to. So the move that black played was bishop to e6, attacking the queen so that now if white takes the queen, well then, black can just take white's queen, and after this, you take it and you kind of get a big trade, black comes out on top. So that's the idea, but the question that you have to answer is, well, what happens if white just takes it with check? Because now you have the same problem. Well, now you play queen f7, and you're probably wondering, wait a second, why couldn't black just play queen f7 immediately? Why did you have to randomly give up your bishop, right? Here's what's going on. If you play queen f7 immediately, you allow white to play bishop to c4, which pins your queen. Now you can't play bishop e6, the bishop just takes it, and you're actually losing your queen. If we compare that, after bishop e6 takes queen f7, well, now there's no bishop c4 to win your queen. Of course, white could still play bishop c4, but now you can just trade queens and the game goes on. So that's pretty amazing. Now, the funny thing is, if we go back here, after d6 check, if you plug this into a computer and turn on Stockfish, Stockfish says the best move is queen f7. Not bishop e6. Now, bishop e6 is a good move. It's the second move. Why does Stockfish say queen f7 is the best move if after bishop c4, you're going to lose the queen? If you want to pause the video and think about that for a second, I'll give you a chance to do that. What can black play in this position? All right, well, if you had a chance to think about that, the answer is that black can simply play d takes c3, giving up the queen. Takes, and if you remember, the initial sacrifice, white gave away the knight, and then just now, black captured that knight, and black got this bishop. So black ended up getting 3 pieces for the queen. 1, 2, 3 for the queen. If you remember, I have a video on my channel where I talk about this. Generally speaking, 3 minor pieces is actually better than a queen. And we can see that in action here, and Stockfish agrees with us and says black is just winning here. After white takes here, something like knight b to d7, maneuvering this knight back to f8, getting the bishop out. Eventually, this pawn is going to fall because there's so many minor pieces, and it turns out that this is just better for black. So that was actually the best move, although what was played in the game, bishop e6, is much more interesting and cool. So anyway, that's our first game. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next position. All right, so here's the next position, and I want to show you how we end up in the final position. So white captures this pawn here on a6. Black throws in this bishop a5 move, so they're attacking the queen, and they're also kind of blocking off this rook from defending the bishop on a6. So now white has a nice little idea. They sacrifice their rook, sacrifice their queen to lure black's queen away because the queen was defending the f6 square, and then they come in with the knight, threatening this amazing knight and rook checkmate, and black's king is actually stuck in the corner, right? It can't move, and none of the pieces can really stop the rook from going there. The problem is that black has this move queen to e1 check. And now if white tries to escape, guess what? The queen is going to g3, back to e1, and we're going to get this perpetual. So what do you think white plays? Well, you can probably guess, of course, bishop to f1. So the big question is, why does bishop f1 save the position for white and actually lead to a victory? What is it about this move? Well, the answer is that after the queen takes, when you go to king h2, there's no more follow-up. The queen doesn't have this idea anymore. There's just no good checks. The only check is if you give up your queen, right? And black has the problem that there's no way to stop the mate with the rook here. You can like delay it by doing something like this, but you still have the same problem. So black is stuck in the mating net, and it was all because of this bishop to f1, bishop deflection. All right, let's go check out number 3. Okay, so here's the position. Black is just captured on h3. White doesn't even recapture and says, nope, I'm going to create my own threats on the king, puts the bishop on e5. So black plays f6 to kind of block that off. And now white plays a really nice move, knight to e4, because if black tries to take the knight, well, then the queen's going to come in here and take the bishop. Okay, so black plays this way, captures this bishop. But now white's idea, queen g3, and it's looking pretty bad for black, because if we go something like king h8, the queen's coming into e5, and white's actually completely winning after king g8. Let's see, yeah, queen takes e6, and it's all over for black. So what do you think black played in this position? Well, of course, you know that the move is bishop to g4, and after captures, now black plays king h8. And the reason why that was a good idea and why that was a good move is because the queen can no longer take on e5, which is really what the big problem was for black. Now white doesn't have a good follow-up. I think, let's see, knight g5 was tried in the game, but black just played queen d2, rook c7, queen takes f2 check, and then black was able to simplify the position. We end up this where black just has the 2 rooks against the rook and the knight, and went on to win the game. And just to recap, back in this position, if black didn't play the bishop g4, again, this is the reason why it just would have been over for black. All right, pretty cool. Let's go see the next one. All right, so here's the position. It's black to play, and black goes with d3 discovered check. So we've got the check on our king, and there's this threat here, which looks pretty scary. So what do you think? If you want to pause and try to guess, what did white play? And more importantly, why did they play that move? What is it about that move that saves the position? I'll give you a second to do that. All right, if you had a chance to look at that, we're going to look at the solution now. Well, first of all, before we look at the move, which of course was bishop to d4, let's talk about what happens if white just slides the king over. Well, now black has the option to simply take this rook, and that rook was the main driving force in white's attack. And once that gets captured, well, yeah, white can just take the pawn, but we get a pretty even position, queen and 2 bishops, queen and 2 bishops. White doesn't really have anything. So if we compare that to the position after bishop to d4, after check, now when we play king h1, this rook is still here, which means white's attack is still strong, and black actually has no way to stop it. So for example, if they take here, rook here, check, king takes, queen comes down, and this leads to mate in 5 for white. After takes, black is just throwing some pieces away to delay the inevitable. There's checkmate. So the key factor, going all the way back, was that in this position, the bishop is hitting the rook on f8. You can't just move your king or you're going to lose your rook. The only way to save the rook was by giving up the bishop voluntarily, because it forces the bishop off of that diagonal. And of course, the bishop can't just take the rook now because you're also pinning the bishop to the queen. So really nice move. These tactics are just so amazing. I just really enjoy going through these, and I hope you're enjoying them as much as I am. Okay, let's go to the next game. Okay, here's the next position, and white decides to go for queen to e6. Very aggressive and good move, attacking the rook, potentially threatening to come down here. It looks very strong for white, and then black has this really nice move, queen takes g1 check. And now king takes g1, rook c1, and all of a sudden, white looks like they might be in trouble. So again, if you'd like to pause, what do you think white played here? And the more important question is, why did they play that move? All right, well, if you've had a chance to pause and look at that, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on. So first of all, we have to ask the question, what happens if we just make the obvious move, king to f2? Well, now black gets a queen with check. Our only move is to go here, rook to c3 check, king to f4, queen to d2 check, and black is completely winning. We can try to run, but let's see, queen c2 check. There's actually no way to get away from these checks, and eventually it's going to end badly. Queen e2, king f4, queen takes h5. Yeah, and we are just losing. Okay, so let's compare that, we go all the way back here, to what happens after the bishop deflection. Bishop e1, rook takes check, king to f2, and now you can see there's no more queen for black because the rook is blocked. I mean, sorry, the rook is blocking the pawn, right? So that was the whole point. You couldn't allow black to get the queen. You had to block it, even at the cost of giving up your bishop with check. And of course, after here, you can simply just take the pawn and there's no more threat for black, and you're up a queen. So really nice move there. Bishop to e1, only winning move for white. I mean, there was only 2 moves in the game, but of course this one wins and this one loses. All right, so here's the next position. It's actually black to play, and black plays rook to c8, puts us in check. It's called a skewer because our king is skewered to the queen. As soon as we move the king, the queen is going to be captured behind, and there's also this queen over here, so it's really looking bad for white. And you say, well, if you block with the rook, it's going to get captured. If you block with the bishop, it's going to get captured. If you block with the knight, it's going to get captured, all with check. And of course, we're losing our queen. So I invite you again, pause the video. What do you think white should play in this position? And of course, the more important question is, why should they play that move? All right, well, if you've had a chance to pause and analyze, the correct move, as I'm sure you have figured out by now, is bishop to c5, blocking with the bishop. Now, first of all, let's just talk about if you don't block and you try to move your king somewhere, like let's just say king to d3, it doesn't really do anything. The queen just takes it and you have no threats and you just lose. Okay, so bishop c5, rook takes, and now king d3. What's the big difference? After this, guess what? There is a back rank that no longer has the rook guarding it, and you just won the game. So now we can see the idea is that by lowering the rook off of the back rank, we are creating our own checkmate threat. And so now we can basically move our king where the queen can't be captured with check, and black doesn't have time to take it. They have to deal with the checkmate. And so, you know, let's just say they did something random move like this. Well, guess what? Now we can take this queen over here. Okay, so that was the idea. And so what actually happened in the game after bishop c5, let's see here. I believe bishop b3 was played, and black is basically trying to lure the king away so that they can take the queen this way and keep the rook on the back. So white played here, check. Black could have gotten a draw that way, and they decided, nope, I want to go for more, check. Rook came back, now check, king d3, and now if this happens, there's no more checkmate threat because our king's in the way, but we do have this threat over here on the queen. So for example, takes, and we get a pretty equal position. And so what happened in the game was check, check, and just a perpetual check, and it was a draw. So, you know, the only way that white was able to save the position was with that bishop c5 deflection. All right, so here's the next game I want to show you. And this one I'm actually going to start a little bit before the position because this was an interesting, I think, good learning opportunity. So white is trying to attack black's king. They've got the bishops lined up that way. They've got the queen over there. This is almost checkmate, but the knight on f6 is defending it. And I want to go ahead and let you pause the video and see if you can figure out what white played in this position. And this is a little bit of a tricky one, but I want to see if you guys catch on to what I'm trying to show you here. So pause the video and let me know what you think white should play in this position. All right, well, if you had a chance to do that, let's go ahead and talk about the solution. Now, I'm going to guess that a lot of you thought rook takes f6, because when I first looked at this position, that's what I thought. I said, oh, rook takes f6, and regardless of how black recaptures, we've got checkmate on h7, right? Makes sense? Yeah. Problem is, black doesn't have to recapture, and what they can do is take our bishop on d3, eliminating the checkmate threat, and guess what? We still have a problem with our rook. Our rook's still under attack, and then after that, the knight's going to go somewhere annoying, maybe take this, maybe I don't know where, but the point is it's bad for us. So the actual move that was played in the game, and the best move, is rook to a5. Very, very nice idea. It's defended by the knight. You're attacking the queen, and you're getting ready to potentially use this rook to help out in the attack. So congratulations if you saw that and didn't get thrown off by rook takes f6. Okay, so queen d6 was played, And now another really nice move by white. Again, if you'd like to pause, figure out what do you think white played here. All right, if you've had a chance to do that, the move was bishop takes h7 check. So of course, black doesn't want to move and allow the discovered check with the bishop, so they have to take it. White played rook to h5, lining up on the knight. And now black played the move e5, and this is actually a very sneaky move, setting up a little trap here. So white captured on h7. Looks really good, looks like we're going for checkmate, and then black plays this amazing move, bishop takes g2 check. The point is that it's triple fork, and of course we can't take with the queen or our rook now is no longer defended, so we lose our rook. So we have to take with the king, and now we see black's idea, queen to g6 check, attacks our king and our rook at the same time. Okay, so again, I invite you to pause the video, and what do you think white played here? All right, if you've had a chance to pause that, you probably got this one, but of course, it's the incredible bishop to g5. Yes, nothing's defending the bishop, and yes, both of these pieces can capture it. So first of all, let's back up. If we just move our king, the normal sort of get out of the check move, well then black just takes our rook, and let's see, 2 rooks, 2 pieces, 1 rook, 3 pieces. So we're down the exchange, and black is just winning. So we don't want to do that. So what's the deal with bishop to g5? Well, first of all, if the queen takes with check, which is the most obvious, now we play king h1, and guess what? There's no more queen to take our rook on h7. So we're threatening checkmate, and if something like f6 to create a space to run, we're also threatening this, and the only thing black can do is sacrifice their queen for the rook. Okay, and then going back, the other option, bishop takes here, of course, checkmate in one move there by the rook. So amazing move. What was played in the game was queen takes h7. Then we had this trade. Bishop takes here. It's actually a pretty equal position, and I believe the game was a draw, but just the fact that white was able to save the position here with this nice move, bishop g5, was pretty cool. All right, it's time to go and look at the final position, and this one was my favorite. All right, so here's the position. White has just played rook to f1, putting black in check. And before we talk about the move here, I want to just point you to something really interesting. Look at the the queens and the kings. White's queen is pinned to the king by black's queen, and black's queen is pinned to the king by white's queen. And so neither of the queens can move anywhere except to capture each other. That's the only move that the queens can make in this position, which I thought was pretty fascinating. But then on top of that, black has a big problem that the knight is kind of taking away these squares. And so if you move your king away, you're losing your queen. So what do you think black should play? And of course, the more important question, why should they play that move? Well, if you've had a chance to analyze it and you're ready to see the solution, the move is bishop to f3. Now, of course, let's just back up and talk for a second. If black doesn't do that and does something like king over here, well, then white's simply going to take the queen, and black has no threats, and it's game over. Okay, so what's the big deal about bishop to f3? Well, of course, rook takes f3 check. We have the same problem, right? Not quite. Now we can play king g6, and if the queen takes, we have checkmate on the back rank, because yet again, we have lured away the only defender of that back rank mate, right? The rook was defending it, now it's not, and so you can see why bishop f3 is the move. And yeah, that's it. The other move, let's see, what can white play? Oh, the other part of this, right, is that if white blocks this checkmate somehow, like maybe bringing the rook back, well, then we're also threatening to take the queen for free. And there's actually no way to save both of those. Queen g1 check to defend would be a nice move, but remember, this queen is actually pinned, so it really doesn't have any moves except to take the queen, which doesn't work, right? So amazing position, bishop to f3, crazy move. And by the way, it's not actually winning for black because white doesn't have to take that. There's knight h5, king e6, and the game kind of goes on with this perpetual check deal with the knight. But regardless, pretty amazing stuff, bishop to f3. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will be doing more. I've actually really enjoyed going through these. We just looked at all of the bishop deflections, but there are also knight deflections, rook deflections, queen deflections. There's some more composed problems that I'll be looking at in the future too. So make sure you stay on the lookout for those. Thank you guys for watching. As always, stay sharp. play smart, and take care.